Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a podcasting coach if you want to start podcasting. The reason being, I have 5 podcasts, including this one, the Learn Polish podcast, the Speaking podcast, the Awakening podcast, and the Crypto podcast. And I have 4 in the top 0.5%. So if you want to find out more, go to roycon.com. Today, my guest, I'm looking forward to this because this man has done amazing things. I will say CPA turned ordained minister to a master of multiple ancient arts and sacred science, meditation, Reiki, Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, author, not of 1 book, not of 2 books. It might be more since I've got this information, but 86 books. Please welcome Timothy Stuetz.
It's nice to be with you, Roy.
Impressive. So, let's start off. What do you do in your free time? Because you're obviously not that busy.
Oh, right now in my free time, I'm designing a book club for children and their parents to access the books and do different things online with the books and creating their own storybooks, teaching children to create their own storybooks.
Beautiful. So I'd like to delve into that, but I have to ask you, the background is beautiful. What exactly you might tell us the story about that background that you have?
Well, when I switched from being a certified public accountant into meditation and yoga, I set up a nonprofit corporation, and it was all about transformation and helping people transform their lives. And butterflies, for me, represent transformation. So that's how the logo came about.
No, brilliant. And I actually forgot to mention about your nonprofit. Was there anything else? Because I know if there's anything else you want the listeners to know about you, feel free to let them know.
No, you covered the overall very well.
Okay, so I suppose let's go into the children's books, because it's actually very interesting for me, because I've equal custody of my son. He's 8 now, my youngest child, and his first language is Polish, and I've obviously through the speaking word made him fluent in English. But it was when we were watching something on the telly, I realized that his reading wasn't great. So I went away and I bought 50 books from children's books. And I read a lot of books. I read about 100 a year. So I have a board downstairs, and I said, let's have a competition. So in 2 months, he got through the 50. So I've ordered the next 50, and he's on to, I think, 72 or something like that. And he's loving it. But I think, like at times I'm sitting, I'm reading, and then I get him to read it. And then I was actually getting him to actually write, when I saw he was struggling with some of the words, that he would actually write it out. And like, even though some of them are like 20 pages or some might be 40, the way it's done, like the lion roared or, dived in, it's not using he jumped into the river, and it's slowly building the vocabulary, which in turn he's going, Daddy, what does that word mean? And I haven't read your books, but I'd love to know what's your books about.
They're an incredible blend of adventure and science fiction, mystery and magic, fantasy and reality, poetry, blending proven principles of child development in there. They're educational, entertaining. They have a lot of virtues and values woven within them. So they're all about love and helping children develop their full potential as far as love, and also understanding the world that we live in. So the main character is Blissberry Bear, who comes from the Great Bear constellation in a Blue Pearl starship to literally help children, excuse me, understand, challenges they may be facing.
Yeah, and like the 86 of them. So when did you start?
I started by, I actually kind of switched from being a CPA to owning a chocolate shop because I woke up one morning and I said, if Hershey's can make chocolate kisses, I can make chocolate French kisses. So I actually opened up a chocolate shop and learned how to dip chocolate and make chocolate. And it was in that chocolate shop that I received a box of bears stuffed teddy bears that I did not order. So I opened up this box and there's 50 little teddy bears looking at me, and being a CPA and also loving a mystery and how to solve a mystery, I found out who the bears belonged to. And they actually gave me the box of bears. And I carried one of them in my car with me. And one day at a stoplight, I just picked up the little bear and I looked at it and I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "Poet Bear." And I wrote love poetry at the time. I wrote philosophical poetry. And so I decided to combine the little bear with the little book of my poetry, put it in a package together. And when I got the whole thing together and set it on the counter to sell, my mom looked at it and said, "You missed your calling. That should have been a children's book." And I said, "Well, you can read my things, Mom, and it's not for children." And somehow what she said planted a seed, because 6 months later, I found the idea for Blissberry Bear and the first children's story just popped out. And ever since I finished that story, they just keep popping out one at a time.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I love, that you're getting a message, because I know there's plenty of books out there. There's, people reading Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and all these things, but getting something that there's a meaning behind, I think is fantastic. And like the ones that I was doing as well, like there was always a message. And then I'd ask him, "What you get out of this? What you think about this?" And he'd understand it. And people think that a child wouldn't get that, but it sinks in. And to get a child, into it. So what age groups is it? All age groups that your books are aimed for?
They're aimed from starting in the 5th month in the womb, because at the 5th month in the womb, babies start recognizing speech patterns from their mom, from the vibrations they hear from the outer world. So the neural development starts then. So I actually have a series of stories starting from the 5th month in the womb through the first 3 years. And then they're pretty much for children from anywhere from that age 0 all the way up till 10, 92. There's, what one functional medicine doctor wrote, that these stories are just great for inner child work. It's like you said, you're reading the children's stories too. So we get something out of them as adults. I used to love to read some of the stories that my daughter enjoyed.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think when you're reading them with your child, the joy of seeing them interacting, and then you can be creative as well. You don't have to just read the text. I mean, I'm always saying, "Well, what's that there? What's that about? Why do they put that there?" And just things like that. So then that when they're turning the next page, they're paying way more attention.
Yeah, I also built in some, general questions at the end of each story, so that the reader and the child can interact with the questions. And it's not so much from what do you remember in the story, but it's just to generate conversation about what the story was about and the characters.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'd like to delve into your meditation journey. So you might kind of because I mean you've covered a lot, the Reiki and the yoga and everything. You might just tell me your journey in that.
Into meditation?
Yeah, meditate, going into all of them, with the Reiki and how they all kind of evolved.
It's sort of evolved. It's never anything I went searching for. Like the children's books and writing children's books, I never imagined myself doing that. So I was a certified public accountant that had a minor operation one night and took some Valium before the operation, and then took some pain pills. that night. And after I fell asleep, I was having a dream where I was driving a car around a mountain road, and there was a lady in the car with me. And I remember saying, going around this curve, I can't control it anymore. And the next thing I knew, my eyes were wide open. I was looking up at the ceiling, and it was like I was in an old-time movie theater where I was seeing light come from my eyes and projecting a movie on the ceiling. And I was watching them carry our bodies away. And I thought that was very strange. So the next night, I'd taken another pain pill. I go to bed, I have a dream, and I open my eyes, and coming out of the wall across from me was this bearded man with an orange cap on, and like I could only see above his chest. So it was like he's wearing orange robes. So I literally remember closing my eyes saying, I'm a certified public accountant. I'm going back to sleep, and I'm not taking any more pain pills. And 9 months later, I sort of spontaneously left my body at a time where I hadn't been sleeping much, because I put on a set of seminars for accountants, mortgage bankers, and lawyers across the United States. And I was laying with somebody, and I left my body. And she witnessed my body dying. I saw her freaking out. I was a little freaked out because I just knew I was out of my body. And I got back in my body, picked up the phone, called a psychologist I had seen once in a while, and said, help. And she basically said, I'll get up and ask Baba what to do. And I'd never heard of Baba. I didn't know what she was saying. But she called me back in 15 minutes and said, Baba says to eat something sweet and go to sleep. So I did that, and my psychologist called me at about 5 o'clock the next morning and asked me if I wanted to go chant and meditate with her. And I asked her what chanting was, and she told me, and I said, no, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to sing for anybody. Asked her if she would meet me after she went and chanted and meditated. And so we met, and she brought me a book by Ram Dass. It was Listen to Your Own Truth. And she gave me the name of a astrologer, and she gave me the name of a yoga teacher. So that was my introduction into starting to meditate. I took the yoga classes, and the yoga teacher also followed Swami Muktananda, Siddha Yoga. So after 3 months of yoga, I called up my psychologist and said, I'll go do that chant with you. And that was a morning, a lady had converted her garage, and we went into this garage, and there was plush carpeting on the floor, and men sat on one side and women sat on the other, and there was incense. And I thought that was all very strange. And I thought it was strange people were bowing to a chair, and it was even stranger trying to chant an hour-long chant in Sanskrit. And I really, when I left there, well, at the end of the chanting, the vibrations going through my body were so strong that I literally started to levitate off the floor. And I just grabbed my fingers into the carpet to hold on. And when we got out of there, I just told my psychologist friend, I just said, I feel like a kindergartner that just participated in a 12th grade class. And it took me 3 months to get up the courage to go back to a meditation program, because that experience was so powerful. And then I went back just really to find out how in the world this could happen. And I've been meditating ever since.
And with the chanting, can you remember what was it like? Like Krishna kind of chanting, was that the kind of meditation that it was, or?
Yeah, it's a chant called the Guru Gita. So it's 180 some verses long, and each verse has anywhere from 4 to 8 lines in it. And you read it from a book. And it was very confusing the first time, because the end of some words, like we would read normally in English, was actually the start of the next word. So it's like they would take the end of one word, that would be the start of the next word. And anyway, that's why I felt like a kindergartner in 12th grade. And I felt like I ruined everybody else's morning trying to read and keep up with things that I did not understand.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And with the yoga, because I've looked at some of the videos on your YouTube channel, and I saw with the children that you had yoga for children, and I thought that was very good, because it looked like they're doing all animal poses, which a child would be very happy to do. And I just kind of, one, your own journey, but two, how you came about, helping the children with the yoga.
Well, for meditation, because my body started to break down and get sick at one point in time, I discovered Reiki. And then I got an internal message to take Tai Chi at one point. And I'd been doing yoga, but I'd never done Tai Chi. And I didn't pay attention to that message. And then one time at a meditation retreat, my legs just blew up like big balloons from literally the waist down to my toes, and I could barely walk. So when I got back from that retreat, movement became very important to me. So I looked up a Tai Chi teacher in one of those magazines that you pick up at grocery stores, and took a Tai Chi class. And I loved that so much, I got certified to teach various forms of Tai Chi. And one form that I came across was called the animal frolics, which is the original form of movement that we know in the world today. So it predates yoga and it predates Tai Chi by 400 years. And it was developed by a Chinese doctor that decided that, by looking at animals, if you imitate these 5 animals, it'll make you healthy and keep you healthy and strong. So I did that, and it's a wonderful practice. And then because I had the bear, Blissberry Bear, for the children's stories, I had a costume made by the original man that made Disney's original costumes for his animals back in the 50s. So I found him, and he made me a Blissberry Bear costume. And when I was there, I saw that he had a deer costume, and a bear and a deer are one of the 5 animals. So I asked him if I could borrow his deer costume. And I just got the idea of, getting in these costumes and doing the power animal frolics for children. So I had costumes made for the 5 original animals. Plus, I learned another form of Qigong that was only used by the royalty in China. And that includes a dragon. And then I learned another form of Qigong from a man where you're patting your body down and hitting your body in certain sequences. So I thought, well, gorillas, pat their chest. So I had a gorilla costume made. So, yeah, it's my 7 animal frolics. Children can follow along to me while I'm in the costumes.
Brilliant. And the last one, that sounds like a kind of form of tapping, yeah? Is that like, but you're doing it with the body? Because a lot of the times, the tapping in the hand and the face and stuff like that. But because the reality is, the meridians or whatever you call them, you're kind of opening them and making sure that all is clear.
You're actually tapping the entire body. So you're doing the main body cavities like the head, the chest, the abdomen, the back, and all of the major meridians. And you use a certain sequence as you're doing the tapping. It was the basis for a form of Qigong that dates back to the 800s. And the tapping portion was used in both the medical form of this Qigong, the meditation form of this Qigong, and the martial arts aspect. And the martial arts aspect is after you got your body used to being hit by your, the palm of your hand and then your fist, then you would graduate to a bamboo stick. And then you would graduate to hitting your body with a metal rod. So I learned this from the master that was carrying this lineage on, and actually watched him do a video. And at middle 70 years old, he came in and he literally had very little on while he was doing this video. And I just knew that if I was standing behind him, nobody would get to me. And watched some demonstrations where, he had 9 people, 9 men pushing against him, and they could not move him. And he stuck out one finger and they all went flying. So those are the powers we have when we're tapped into that universal source of energy that we are.
Yeah. And I mean, I've done martial arts for when I was younger for, I don't know, about 6 years. And I remember doing Tai Chi, and it's frightening as well as fascinating, the energy aspect of things. Because when you see something like that, because I mean, some people hear that and they kind of go, go away, that's impossible. And I know there's some shows they're saying, there's people doing these things. But when you actually feel the energy yourself and you do things yourself, then you realize it exists. And I think that's the best way of understanding something, to actually physically feel it instead of watching something and then just putting your own doubts into it.
Yeah, it's like eating chocolate. You can't explain to somebody what chocolate tastes like. It's like, no, you got to eat it. It's the same with Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation. It's like we actually have to do it in order to feel what it does for us, and to feel the other aspects of us, our soul aspect, our energetic aspect, far beyond what these bodies are and the mind, and literally just tap into that universal source of energy we are.
Absolutely. And because I've seen one of the other videos, you're talking about Om, when you're saying Om. So you might explain the reasoning why people do that, because not, some of the listeners, because I put up meditation, I put up breathwork, but in the last few months, there's been a lot of interviews, and it's kind of educating people as well. So some people mightn't be familiar. So I'd like to hear your, point on, I don't know how you would call it, a chant, or by actually saying Om.
Well, Om specifically is said to be the primordial sound from which everything comes from, and all of life is vibration. So, for even humming, just humming has proven to be physically healing, mentally healing. So I've also read where it's like our individual voice is the most healing tool we have. So our whole being resonates to the vibration of our own voice. So when we say loving things to our body, when we hum, when we use the vibration of Om or anything like that, everything comes into resonance and into harmony. I mean, the mantra of the Siddha lineage, that meditation path that I first found, is Om Namah Shivaya. And I repeated it and chanted it for 2 years before I actually felt anything from it. I just did it because I was told to do it and was told that it worked. And it took me 2 years of chanting it. And one day I was like, oh, wow, this really does do something. You know, it's like learning Qigong or martial arts. You know, you practice and you don't know why you're doing it. Your mind's learning technique and you're learning to do this and then you're learning to do that. But once the body gets the memory, then you can let go of the mind part, and then you really start to feel the energy that is generated.
Oh, absolutely, because I remember like
So
we
chanting's
done
the same way.
we done a lot of kind of street fighting and getting out of headlocks and everything. And I mean, I done that when I was 16 to maybe 22, and maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was doing a speech and I asked a guy to come up. I was talking about martial arts and stuff like that, and I done all the things without any rehearsal or anything. And I still remembered every single thing that I learned because I had practiced so much. I mean, I was thinking about afterwards. I mean, why I didn't practice beforehand, or even, but the fact that the memory is just there, you practice the whole time, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing to actually experience when you know that it just happens naturally. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story. There's a book by Lam Cam Chuen called The Way of Energy, and it describes standing meditations. And in China, it's called Jiang. And there's 5 poses that you hold. And there's a story in there that, you know, this one student, you know, it's like all you do is you hold these 5 poses. And you build up over time to where you're holding each of the 5 poses for 5 minutes. So you're standing still for 25 minutes holding these poses. And the master that took over the lineage, when he was training, he asked the other master's son one time, he says, "What does your father teach you? He must give you some secrets that he's not giving me because he's just telling me to stand here." And he says, "Well, you know, that's what he tells me too. Stand there. And if I don't stand there still, then I get hit with something." But he asked this student at one point in time, after he stood there for a couple of years holding these poses, he asked him to wrestle with 2 advanced students who were trained in martial arts. And he'd never done that. But he found that the energy and just the internal knowing from standing there for 2 years holding these poses allowed him to beat both those people.
Interesting. And because I know you've got a lot of videos, I didn't get a chance to go through all of them. Have you covered that? Because that's interesting for me. Have you covered them poses in any of your videos?
There is one of the videos on YouTube that has those poses in it. And I also have a blog with meditation instructions that has the specific instructions for holding those poses. They're very simple.
Okay, no, excellent. And I know another one that I was watching, something that I do myself, is sun gazing. So that's something obviously that you're practicing. You might, because I think you had 9 tips on it, or 9 ways. So you might just kind of talk a bit about that, because I think the benefits are amazing for that.
Sun gazing. I was actually doing Tai Chi on a mountaintop one morning and just internally felt that there was some way to harness the energy of the sun that I didn't know about. And then years later, I was doing Tai Chi in the backyard at sunset one night, and I had that same feeling. It's like, you know, there's a way to pull this energy into me that I don't know. And maybe 3 days later, I was in a restaurant and I picked up a flyer, and there was a man from India giving a talk on sun gazing. So I went and listened to his talk, and it sounded amazing. The benefits he described, and he had actually gone without food for over 400 days just from looking at the sun. He was studied by NASA. And so I followed his technique, which was basically look at the sun within an hour of sunrise or an hour before sunset. Start with 10 seconds. And every day you can see the sun, add another 10 seconds to it until you've built up to 44 minutes at one time. So where I lived at the time, there was a lot of clouds and things. So it took me a year to build up to 44 minutes. And it changed my life. I remember 2 consecutive days around where I was at 33, 34 minutes at a time, where my entire body lit up like a nuclear reactor for the entire time I was sun gazing. And I knew it was transforming every part of me. So I built up to 44 minutes and then kept doing it every now and then for 10 or 15 minutes. And now I might look for a couple of minutes at a time. And it's really powerful if you're standing barefoot in the dirt at the same time and connecting into Mother Earth's energy.
I found that I love doing it when I'm at a beach, but you know, sometimes in a city it's not as easy because you know when it's falling between a lot of trees, it's hard to get the right timing and
Right.
everything. And just curious, because I mean I'll be 50 this year. I don't wear glasses. Do you wear glasses yourself?
Because of the amount of time I spend on the computer screen, I should be wearing these blue block glasses, but no, my eyes are, I really don't need glasses.
Yeah, because I think that's a benefit of it, because I know that it was something even from a young age. I always was fascinated with the sun. And I mean, all my family wear glasses. I don't wear, and I put it down to that. I think that it actually helps your eyesight.
Yeah, before I started sun gazing, both eyes had a little bit of nearsightedness in them. After I sun gazed, one eye went nearsighted and the other eye went farsighted. So it's like they kind of balanced each other out. But I'm very blessed. I just turned 71 last month and I have no body pains. I'm flexible, I'm healthy, no medications, and I think it's all because of the meditation and the Tai Chi and yoga.
And a positive attitude.
Positive attitude. Good diet.
It all helps. It all helps. And just, I suppose, finally, breathwork, because I know you do breathwork as well, because there's so many different types. There's box breathing, and I just curious what kind of breathwork you've tried and what you kind of find that you practice the most, or you do the most.
I've never focused. Well, I can't say that. I do some pranayama every day. I also learned a technique from a little Oriental lady who had 5 practices that she did every day. And she proved how beneficial those practices were by when she gave talks, she would always challenge the strongest man in her audience to come up and arm wrestle her. And she never lost. And part of her thing was breathing, where you're just basically you do repetitions, but you're inhaling through your nose and you're swinging your arms, and then you just let your breath out in a loud sound, like you're bringing up the air from deep in your abdomen and just letting it out your voice. I don't want to make the sound here. It might interrupt people's ears. So ever since I learned that, I do that practice every day. I do some pranayama, deep breathing, like 20 breaths, like fire breaths. And then I do some breathing in connection with Vietnamese longevity stick, where you're coordinating breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then I also do a little bit of the, like the Wim Hof method of inhaling and exhaling through the mouth every now and then. But what I found with a consistent meditation practice and a consistent Tai Chi practice is that God literally takes over my breathing when I'm meditating and when I'm doing Tai Chi or Qigong. It's like it's like the universe is breathing through me, through my body. And it doesn't require any practices. It just happens. And the breath is powerful. You know, we can do some really extensive inhaling and exhaling through the mouth, coordinated with music, and get ourselves in states of consciousness and see things that we can't normally see in our waking life. So
no, I've done that. I've tried. I've had about 10 different facilitators, and yeah, I've seen things that I've never seen before, and it just felt fantastic. And you know, even for days afterwards, you just feel amazing. And all I
yes,
can say is, you know, try it. I wouldn't do it online on your own or listening to somebody online. I think having a facilitator there, because sometimes emotions can come up, and it's nice to have somebody that
yes,
knows what they're doing to comfort you. But I think, yeah, there's so much involved in the breath that it's never taught. You know, it should be done in school and everything. We should be all conscious of these things, but unfortunately all the good things that we're supposed to do, they squash, and they kind of, you know, they push all the bad things on us. But we're too cute for that. We're actually doing the opposite. So
I actually have a series of maybe 5 or 6 children's stories that teach about breathing and the importance of breathing, and give children exercises that they can do easily and have fun with to facilitate their breathing, and then use that breath work and that focus to go out into the world and whatever they do as they're playing, to stay centered and focused and do things more powerfully than those children that don't know how to integrate breath work.
excellent. Listen, Timothy, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. You might let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, my website is www.timothystuetz.com, Stuetz. And in the menu, there's some freebies there for everybody in the family. There's some very powerful meditations and a couple of fairy tales for the children. That padding method I talked about is there. Yeah, they can also go to just blissberrybear.com. Bliss, and then BEARY bear.com, and they'll get to the same place.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll make sure I put all the links in both the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Timothy.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be with you, Roy. This has been very enjoyable.
So that's all for the meditation podcast. You'll find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and a review and a nice comment. It all helps. Until next week, take care.